2026, I can't believe it is actually upon us. It has been a whirlwind of a year in so many different ways, which has been very exciting, but also quite alarming in that how things quickly go now. But anyway, I guess that's what happens when you get older. But today, in this session, because it's coming to the end of the year, because it is our last session of the year, we wanted to get you to think about and focus on what next year looks like for you. We want you to sort of embrace what is to come, appreciate what has obviously happened in the last, however long we've been working together for the last year, and think about where you want to take things and raising your standards as we obviously do so. Now, today's session, there's a couple of things that we ask of you. And I hope you have your pen, I hope you have your paper, because this is going to be quite a action-orientated session, more so than usual. This isn't about us giving you a load of information. It's about us inspiring you, asking the right kind of questions, and getting you to think and plan this out for yourself. What I would also do is within this session, it's kind of like a light session. And what I mean by that is we've picked a few of the questions which we feel like would be most impactful for the call that we have now. Hello, Janine. Good evening. And we will share with you a worksheet which includes these questions, but also adds some more. And I think it's really important for you to go away, have a think around the additional questions, and sort of think about how you can sort of really structure and plan what is coming in the year ahead. So yes, I want you to put pen to paper. We will pause for a little bit with each question. So there will be some silence, but myself and Marvin will obviously share our thoughts in relation to that to give you a bit more of inspiration, rather. We want you to reflect. We want you to have a great degree of introspection and looking internally, and also brutal honesty. This is a real good time to really sort of drill down into why you are doing things or why you're not doing things. I want you to be ambitious as well with your thinking. And as I mentioned, don't stop here. We will be circulating a little worksheet after the session. And so I wanted to start just on, the classic conversation around resolutions and how these are formed at the beginning of each year. I know back in the UK, and I think it's very similar here, people want to do everything. 90%, it's a crazy number. 90% of New Year's resolutions fail, whether that is wanting to lose weight, stop smoking, learn a language, all of these sorts of things. And a staggering portion of people, 80% of people actually abandon them by February. So not even, a month in or just over a month into the year, people have given up on these things. And 8% maintain them throughout the year. So I want to share something with you. I went back, I remembered I did something. It was probably about 3 years ago now. And I shared this on my Instagram. And this was my focuses for the upcoming year. And I think, well, Marvin, first impressions, what do you think?
This is a lot.
A lot, exactly, exactly. And I think with this, there were things that were non-negotiables for me anyway. And I stuck with them through the whole year. However, I didn't necessarily have plans in place to achieve these things. I didn't break them down into smaller steps. And I'll tell you for one, minimum 10,000 steps a day, didn't continue that. Sober living, smash that. Cool home at least once a week. I'm a terrible son, it seems. My parents still seem to love me, so that's fine. When I was with my girlfriend at the time, plan a date night or date day once a week. Didn't happen. So all of these things, I think we can be very like, we want to change our lives, we want to change our routine, stress, lifestyle, health and fitness, nutrition, fun, relationships, all of this kind of stuff. And the more we try and change at any given time, the less likely we are to change those things. And so I know we chat through these things with you quite regularly in terms of what is the one thing you can do right now? And I know Marvin is great at hammering that and making sure that you are nailing that thing before then we add another layer of complexity. And I want to kind of go into or dip into for a moment why change is difficult for us. Behavior change is one of the biggest things, biggest challenges for us, both in ourselves and to influence in other people. And I guess the overarching principle here really is around the fact that we only really change when staying the same becomes more painful than what it takes to change. So we find most people don't resist change because they're lazy or lack motivation, or don't have the time. But they actually resist change because their current situation feels tolerable. So it's not that bad yet. I'll start soon. I can manage this for now. Like change doesn't happen when you want more. It happens when you refuse to accept less. And so a lot of the time, let's think about in the workplace. I remember I stayed in advertising for 8 years and I wasn't enjoying it, but also I didn't hate it. And so you're just stuck in that comfort zone, that comfortable turning up every day, doing your thing, doing stuff outside, which you can just about manage. And you kind of roll on like that. It's tolerable. There's no kind of real pain or discomfort or something that forces you to change the situation that you're in. I think another example, I'm sure you've probably heard of this one, Marvin, is if you have a sort of, what do you call it, a boiling hot sort of pan, a boiling hot pan, saucer, whatever you want to call it, of water, right? If you were to put the lobster into that, it would try and get out as quickly as possible and everything else, and obviously cause a bit of chaos. If you are to rate, like put the lobster in cold water or normal water, and then gradually increase the temperature to the same temperature, it's not going to be trying to get out. The situation is just about tolerable until it's too late. So I think that is an interesting comparison when we think about this. And I want to share this sort of paradox, and this is what it's called. It's the Regent Beta paradox, and it's comfort really is the most dangerous place to live. When life is either not bad enough for you to change or not good enough to feel fulfilled, we stay stuck, we adapt, we cope, we delay. And what that does is create that long-term stagnation. So, for example, we may be a little bit overweight and it's like, okay, it's not too bad. I'm enjoying things, but also I'm not, and so on. Maybe you have a blood test and it's like, okay, yeah, things aren't looking great. Could definitely improve, but it's okay. I'll deal with it in a couple months' time, or, I'm busy at the moment, so I won't change. And so what happens is we get stuck and things potentially get worse. And so comfort really is, in most things, I would say, one of the biggest enemies if we're looking to grow or thrive in whatever pursuit we have. The danger isn't in failure. It is really in living not even close to our full potential. Comfort keeps you negotiating standards. For example, this morning, I could have sacked off my planned run and stayed in bed. Would have been comfortable. I could have said, "I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it this evening." And then maybe something's come up and then I don't end up doing it. It leads us to overthink decisions and it makes us wait for this spurt of motivation to do something. So with this today, and you can see the little worksheet we'll be sort of working on, I'll be sending around afterwards, reflection before direction, right? We need to know what's gone well, where we're coming from before then we can move forward and think about what then we want to achieve. So we can't design your future without understanding what has shaped you to get to this point in time. So before we look forward, we must look back. So Marvin, shall I hand over to you? Go through the first question.
So, great question to kick off with. What are the top 5 personal milestones that you've achieved in your life so far? So think big, think small. As long as something that matters to you that you've achieved is something that comes to mind, it counts, right? If it matters to you, it counts. So we want you to write all 5, spend some time, pen out, paper out, writing those 5. Pete, any that come to mind for you?
Yes, I would say for me, breaking away from the expected and the traditional route of all my friends or society back in London and the UK. It's the typical thing of, go to university, get a job, a graduate degree, like all this kind of stuff, find a partner, get married, get the house, get the mortgage, etc., etc., etc. So for me, that was something that I kind of really realized that I didn't want quite early in my 20s. And now I guess sort of one decision of changing to from advertising into personal training was something that obviously has ended me up at this point. So I think that is quite an interesting long arc in terms of what time it took, but also something that I'm incredibly grateful for. How about you?
Well, I don't know how it is in the UK for you, Pete, but you forgot the white picket fence, the 3.5 kids, and the golden retriever
Exactly, exactly.
as part of the standard.
So you're 2.5 off now, right?
Yes, I've got another 2.5 to go. Um, but yeah, for me, I think it's mostly very similar, I think, not culturally, career-wise, exactly. Where, the expectation, from coming from where I come from, it's like you got to be an accountant, you got to be an engineer, you got to be a doctor, you got to be an engineer, you got to be, lawyer. I imagine it's pretty similar here, right? And so I've gone the complete untraditional route. First of all, playing sport, trying to play professional sport, and then coming into the health and fitness world. And so just being able to go against the grain and actually be much more successful if we look at in terms of where my career has gone, whether we're talking financially, whether we're talking career progression, the things that I've learned along the way, so much more going the untraditional route. And so I definitely would say that's a massive milestone. Getting married, having a son, that's also been great.
So if you've got anything you want to share in the chat box, please do. I think this is going to be a really sort of potent session if we do share and we discuss some of these things. But yeah, I mean, having we got Russia joining. Okay, so having sort of acknowledging or being able to acknowledge and understand and appreciate some of the big milestones that we've had and what it has taken us to achieve these things, it's going to help us understand what is within us to then achieve later things within this. So we spoke about this in our last training, right? We had success leaves clues rather. Your best moments were not luck, right? So some of these milestones, for me, example like moving country and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't necessarily luck. Maybe it was in terms of meeting the right person at the right time, but I shifted trajectory. So it's the same thing if you are in your health and fitness journey or it's your career related or whatever, things build up to that moment of luck, as it were. It's not just luck, it's you're putting yourself in the position to make the most out of that. So they follow patterns of behavior. And let's mute Russia. Good evening, Russia. How are you? Okay. Where were we? So yes, they follow patterns of behavior and identity. And so you've already proven that you can achieve these things. Now, we won't touch on this too much, but success within our program, it leaves clues, right? Communication, brutal, honest reflections, behavior focused, tracking, anchoring their week and non-negotiables, understanding that progress isn't linear. It has ups, it has downs. Education is a huge thing, putting time in to understand more about yourself and taking action. That is the thing that leads to more action. Trusting the process as well, celebrating small wins. And I remember myself and Marvin have done these sort of trainings the last couple of years, right? 2024, 2025. And it's funny, people can actually share their goals or their ambitions. The worksheet that I give you, they can share that with us. And always, the people who put in the work, who reflect, have an idea of where they want to go, are the ones who then continue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the line and, more often than not, achieve some or all of what they want. The people who don't, lo and behold, they don't achieve what it is they want. So these are really powerful drivers for you. And we have our self-mastery process, right? Because just like I did a few years ago, had, I don't know, 50 different things that I wanted to focus on all at once, too much, overwhelming. And so I would have been better to focus on something similar to this, right? What could be in that first phase? What could be around building the foundations? How then do I build that into growth? What is going to be the most impactful thing? So there may be stuff you want to think about achieving and doing, but planning it out through the year. So you have a phased approach to next year or a periodized approach to the next year. And so this accountability, we come down to it every week, right? Marvin shares with you the accountability to see how you are doing. And this isn't about judgment. It is not about pressure, but it's about ownership and understanding where you're doing well and where you could potentially look to improve, right? Where you can, what are those measures that you're struggling with and need to be picked up? So motivation, we talk about a lot. You don't rise consistently to the spurts of motivation that you have, but in fact, you fall to the level of your standards, right? If you don't have things in place, if you have low standards or you let things slip or whatever it might be, that is your baseline level of behavior. If you are someone who accepts, I am not a person who skips. I don't, skip this because my mood dictates. I am going to do the thing no matter what because I know it is worth doing the thing. That is where you then sort of raise your standards and then obviously raise your level of operation. Next up, again, we talk about this a lot. Marvin, do you want to take over here and then lead into the next question?
Yes. So Pete often says this kind of differently sometimes as well, like you behave your way to results. And in this case, you behave your way to success, right? It's not like he's just said, just touched on briefly about motivation that leads you to success. Because if it was just motivation you relied on, you probably wouldn't be, where you are right now. You wouldn't have achieved the goals that you did because motivation comes and goes, right? It's not your confidence. You can't just strong will your way through the confidence that you have into, the results and the success that you are chasing. So we want to be focused on our behaviors, right? Our systems, our standards. And if we focus on that first, and then the identity starts to follow, right? You then start to associate with, I am the person who does X, and that's how you sort of identify yourself. And so the next question, which is a really good one, is, I mean, all these questions are good. If failure was not an option, what would you want to achieve in 2026? And just as you're thinking through that question, guys, like feel free honestly to type in the chat any sort of thing that you're wanting to achieve in 2026. Don't worry about editing or whatever, just literally write freely. I'll riff off, the ones that I've kind of thought of in my head. I'm a man of faith. I'd love to go through the Bible another round, another year trip. I've got a couple more written up on my board, which obviously you guys can't see. There's 4 courses in mind, and it's like every quarter is a different one. Pete, any of yours?
I'm intrigued on these courses. Okay, for me, oh, who do we have? We have someone chime up.
Ooh, Sarah, nice.
Sarah, behavior creates evidence. Yes. Once you act consistently, confidence and identity naturally catch up. Exactly. So it's kind of, people say you build confidence by doing the thing that you say you're going to do, or it's the undeniable stack of evidence that you have to show that you can do a thing. So, for example, I'm sure myself and Marvin, when we started these group calls, were a bit like, ooh, who's going to turn up? Are we going to be able to go through it and flow and all this kind of stuff? And I think now we're what, like 13 in? And I think I like to think we're in a good place, Marvin. But yeah, it's building that confidence by doing the thing you say you're going to do. You are the type of person who does the thing, who doesn't skip, etc. And so for me, I mean, one of my biggest goals is quite early on actually. It's in sort of Q1, so January. It's actually on my birthday weekend, my 36th birthday weekend, and that is to do the half marathon in Riyadh. And for me, I am not a runner. I've never run except for sport, but long distance, horrible. And so that I think is a sort of personal fitness goal that I haven't really had too much of in terms of in the past few years. Fitness is something for me that I do and carry on with. What else? I'm confident I'm going to be able to do that because I'm building up the evidence that I can do a 10K, a 12K, a 14K, etc., and building up like that rather than going from a 5K to a 21K. Ooh, what else? I
And you've
want
got
to.
systems in place as well, Pete, right? Like you've been building up, you've been training, consistent, showing up. Could have, like you said earlier, just slept in, and yet it's those little things building up, over time that are going to lead to you then being able to complete the 21.
That's the plan. Exactly. It's all in the plan. So let's move on, unless anyone else has anything to say there. And again, don't feel like if we rush past a question, you don't have time to answer it. Again, I'm going to share with you this call and then also the workbook so you can really understand what is coming next. So ooh, let's touch back. Okay, so if you think of those milestones you spoke about at the beginning, those things in your life that you have achieved, there was a point in time when you thought they were probably out of your grasp. They were so far down the line, they don't seem real. But now you are at a point where you have achieved those things. So there is a future version of you that has achieved all the things that you want to achieve or you've kind of wrote down in relation to this question here. There is a version of you that has shown up, has been consistent, and has done those things. They think a certain way, they act a certain way, they manage stress differently, they eat a certain way, they plan a certain way, they socialize a certain way. And one of the things here, which it's again like another sort of framework to identity, is how we go about crafting the identity that is going to help us get to the sort of the outcome or the results or the goals that we want. So a lot of the time, people come at it from the wrong way. So really, the prime way to do it is think about being the person. Who must I be? What must I do? So breaking it down into steps and also having like, what is the outcome, right? What is the outcome that you will get from doing these things? However, a lot of people tend to reverse this, right? And I see it a lot on consultation calls with prospective clients. When I have more time, I will be able to go to the gym more regularly, and then I'll be able to achieve, 10 kilos drop in weight. When I have more time, or when I have, you know, how would you say? I'm trying to think, I'm stuck now. It's all about the time, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
But where like it's kind of looking at it from that point of view. So starting with the results, with the outcome, and then that leads you to the stagnation. So if you think about it the other way around, so the be do have, who must I become in order to sort of change the identity? What must I do in order to sort of step into that identity? And what is going to be the result of having that identity? So having this or thinking about it this way, it allows you to think of the person who you need to become. What are their characteristics? What are their traits? What is their thinking? What is their mindset, their behaviors? Then looking at what do I need to do? So breaking it up and then realizing the goal that we are aiming for. So let's break it down here. So describe the version of you that has achieved all of the things that you want to achieve. Who do you need to be? And I've mentioned this already in this call. I am the type of person who does not skip a workout. I am the type of person who, when I start a plan, I stick to the plan. I do not deviate. I am the type of person who, when I start something, I finish it or at least continue it and be consistent with it. Marvin, any from your side?
Yeah, just thinking on that note, Pete, as you're going through that identity framework, I just thought of something and how I was listening to how a lot of people that have, these big goals in mind, right? And let's think like huge. Let's think like billionaires, like, crazy wealth, very successful with all these crazy businesses and stuff. And how oftentimes they have this very overarching goal, right? I want to be a billionaire. I want to create this thing that, the rest of the world can use and so on and so forth. They get to this place and then they're just depressed, and so it's almost like, what if they kind of worked with the end in mind? So sort of worked with the opposite of have, do, be, and they actually appreciated what was going on in the process kind of along the way. And I think this ties really well into this identity framework where you focus on, what you want to be or who you must be, what you want to do or what you must do to then become who you want to be so that I can have X, right? Rather than being the opposite, where you have all these goals in mind and then you do all these things, I don't actually enjoy the process, right? And so you get to the end goal, if you do get there, oftentimes you probably don't. You get there and it's just like, oh, okay, and then what, you know? So whereas if you've gone the other way around, you actually enjoy the process, and who you've become is what you appreciate much more than the overending and overarching goal. I mean, a great goal to have still, but the process is also really, really important. Just my two
Yes, I
cents.
think you're right, and a kind of a sport analogy comes up there where if you are wanting, because you hear this a lot with Olympic gold medalists, right, who sort of have major depression after they've won their gold medal. And not that I'm comparing anything that we do to being an Olympic gold medalist, but
Good
again, if you
comparison.
are so outcome focused, even if you get to the thing, then you haven't really appreciated or changed the identity that allows you to continue therefore afterwards. So a lot of the time, say with, the fat loss journey and all this kind of stuff, once you achieve that thing, have you grown in the process, or are you going to yo-yo back and forward because you haven't necessarily learned or changed your habits, your behaviors, and your mindset? So if anyone's got anything here in terms of who you need to be, please pipe up. But we will go into what do you need to do. So
Yeah, nice segue into the behaviors, right? Like, what are the daily and weekly behaviors that you need to do to then become that person, right? To then achieve those goals. So, action prompts. So, you want to think of listing these actions, not necessarily the goals themselves. What do you need to do? So, for example, for myself, if I want to be able to achieve these four courses, if I want to be able to read through the entire Bible in the year, then I need to put in place certain times of the day, every single day, whether it's 10 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour. I need to put in those times, put in those slots in my calendar. At this time, this is what I'm doing. I'm studying for this, I'm reading this, I'm studying for this. And those are the actions that I need to do.
we'll get you an
Pete,
accountability tracker, Marvin.
yes, I need one, please, Pete. And
Yeah,
I'll
if
send you
anyone's
one
if
for your
anyone's in the
brother.
call and wants to get their own back on Marvin, we can do that. And then what will you have? So obviously we spoke about the outcome and the results of what we're aiming for. So we touched on this already, so we'll kind of swing past this. And we mentioned this, I think, in our last call, right? Where every skill you acquire, so every bit of understanding you have, it doubles your chance of success. So another kind of, I'll bring it back to, the running side of things, because I felt like I was a beginner in that relation. And the like pacing, how fast you run, obviously changes the amount of effort you're putting in, therefore the distance you can run. So that is something I knew obviously about really in theory, but putting into practice was challenging, was difficult. And so you just end up running basically pretty much as fast as you can, and then you kill yourself and then you burn out for the distance. Whereas now you understand that, okay, if I'm going to run at this pace, I will probably be able to run consistently for X number of minutes. Whereas if I run at this pace, then obviously the distance is going to be less. So understanding, building skills, building knowledge allows you to then go further in your journey because you're understanding more of what you're doing. So skills compound, right? That is why we go through the phases: discovery, growth, thrive, and mastery. Skill compounds, motivation fades. So build skills and have those habits really stick. So we're looking for progress, not perfection. This is one of Marvin's. I think he's probably got it on a t-shirt he's wearing at the moment. Uh, perfection, the thinking that everything needs to be perfect before we start, it just delays action. So I'm waiting for the perfect time, or I'm going on holiday in a month's time for a week. I'll start after then. Progress builds momentum. So action begets action. Doing things helps build that momentum, helps build that forward momentum. And consistency always beats intensity. So doing little and often, consistently over days, weeks, months, years is going to be the thing that really helps you achieve what you want. And so I love this question. Like, what five behaviors are you doing now that your future self would absolutely not do? So, what are those behaviors that are getting in your way?
Living on Reddit forums. That's
Living on
me.
Reddit forums.
Yeah, I could definitely be, well, that's my version of doom scrolling because I'm not on social media. I guess Reddit,
Okay, so everyone replaces it
I
with something.
yeah, but honestly, like I find myself going down rabbit holes that are, I mean, some of it definitely is interesting and I could, make a case for, oh, it is going to help me with my course and so on and so forth. However, I still could be putting away that 15 minutes just before I go to bed to actually do something rather than scrolling on Reddit.
Yeah, I'm the same with like Instagram Reels for sure. I put things in place to overcome that, which has definitely helped. But I don't know, you do sometimes just need a mong out moment. But there's other things that you can absolutely replace that with. If anyone's got any suggestions here, that would be really, really nice. I think we have one. No screen time early morning or late night. Exactly. Like I had this realization, I don't know, a few months ago, where my phone is on do not disturb in the morning. I try my hardest to not dip into social media or WhatsApp or whatever, so that I at least get at least 30 to 45 minutes of time to myself to just ease into the day rather than causing chaos and having lovely messages from God knows who on whatever. So I think that's really really valuable thinking about what are the things that I need to stop doing. Because when it comes to time, there's always we always take up a lot of our time with these sorts of activities and thinkings and everything. Find a hobby that doesn't involve the phone, reading, drawing, or painting. Um, I assume you mean find a hobby that doesn't involve the phone, i.e., reading, drawing, and
Reading
painting.
and painting. Yes, 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 yes.
So I was gonna say some of those are great, but yeah, like same thing with the reading. Like it can be such a sort of illuminating, calming type thing. So great shout, Rasha. Up next, we have the fact that sort of we go back to the first slide, really. So raising your standards, or if you raise your standards, your life will change. And this will happen when excuses stop being acceptable, standards become non-negotiable. And it's funny, we always say the people who probably need to be on these calls or the people the people who need to be on these calls are never really on these calls. And so obviously myself and Marvin, we deal with a fair amount of different types of clients. And I think for you coming to this call obviously shows you are thinking in a certain way. You are wanting to have that shift in mindset. You're wanting to understand more. You're wanting to learn more so you can implement it within your day to day. And so there's a segment of the clients who catch up on the calls afterwards, and we get lots of some great feedback there. But there's also a segment of clients who do not engage with the group coaching calls. And I'm sure you can probably bet money on on who sees the most progress, right? So I just thought I'd share that. You simply being here, taking the time out, writing down your answers, going to be thinking about it after the call is literally a fast track to you getting where you want to be. So where do you need to raise your standards immediately? Choose one area.
Yeah, this is a tough one, right? Where you're also kind of thinking in the past, well, for me personally, in the past, I've just been one of those people that doesn't accept any sort of mediocre effort. And so it's like I'm either, when I'm all in, I'm all in. And so I set my expectations really early on. This is what I want to do, this is what I want to achieve. And therefore, I need to show up for those things. And I find myself being okay with, substandard, suboptimal and mediocre sort of standards for myself. Um, Waking up at 5 a.m., 5:30 used to be the thing, and now it's like maybe a 6, maybe a 6:30, maybe a 7. And it's not to say that you should, everyone should be waking up at 5:30, but it's just when you have certain things that you want to do and want to achieve at a certain time because you know that's the best time of day for you. I'm a morning person. This is definitely one for me. Getting back up early is I need to raise those standards, which means sleeping early.
Mm.
Pete?
I think it's interesting when there's like inevitabilities. Like you're going to have to do the thing, you might as well just do it now. And for me, like that comes in relation to grocery shopping, to making sure I've got a delivery of chicken or fruit and vegetables. And it literally takes 5 minutes on the phone. And it's like, okay, if I don't get that delivery in, then I'm not going to be able to make dinner tonight or tomorrow night. Therefore, I will be ordering takeaway. So I feel like I'm great in some aspects in terms of doing what I say I'm going to do, but I feel like I need to just raise the standards across the other aspects where I'm gonna have to do it anyway. I might as well just suck it up and do it now and get it over and done with, or at least get a system in place that reminds me and prompts me and whatever else. So I'm curious if anyone else has something here that they want to share. But yeah, I think. It's an interesting one, and I think we're going to come on to another sort of interesting comment here. Discipline,
Discipline.
exactly, super important, super, super, super important. And I'm sure for all of you, you are amazing in terms of your profession or your fitness or whatever it is you're doing, or just being a great partner, mum, dad, son, whatever. And you have that discipline in other areas of your life. So the area of your life where you're trying to work on and you don't necessarily have it, how can you start nurturing it there in that? A clear plan goal. I recommend a journal weekly schedule. And again, this is something that I shared in a check-in. So Jemana, great shout. I shared this in a check-in. Something that I've been doing each night is picking a handful of journal questions to get me to think actually more actively about my day. Where did I drop the ball? Where did I kind of bullshit myself? Um, what's one moment I was just grateful for in terms of anything and everything? What am I proud of myself for today? It's this sort of language and thinking that fosters that a bit of self-care and sort of has you thinking more in a sort of positive, optimistic kind of way rather than just living Groundhog Day, routine, humdrum kind of life. Just surviving, right? Going back to the sort of region beta paradox, just
Yeah.
being comfortable with a bit of, meh.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, Germano. Who else do we have here? Sometimes we
Yeah,
think
Rush.
about we don't have time to do things, but we just this. I was literally having this conversation with someone earlier today, and there's so much stuff I want to do. I have the time, but it's like I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. I don't know how to prioritize. And so with these questions that I've shared with you and in the worksheet that I have, this is going to be super powerful to kind of overcome, prioritize, and sort of get things in order. Because I totally, totally understand what you're saying there.
I mean,
Uh,
Russia's point, Pete, it actually ties in really well with what Jumana said about having a clear plan and then recommending a journal weekly schedule. So if you, for example, if you have a plan, you have things you want to achieve, and you put them in your schedule, you know that you're going to do them. There's no time for you to try and convince yourself that you've got, other things to do or you don't have time. It's in your schedule. It's going to get done, right? And
yes.
so I think sometimes there's also a little bit of guilt that then happens when you then see that you've got all these things in your schedule and you're still procrastinating or trying to convince yourself that there isn't enough time, but they're there. You put them there and you can do them. Therefore, that, kind of should get you going and
Mm.
get the ball rolling.
Absolutely. And I think again, what leads into that is just the environment, right? The people you hang around with, the spaces you are in, that really shapes identity. And I'm sure you've heard of all the sayings, you are the average of the sort of five people you spend the most time with, or six people or 10 people or whatever it is. I can't remember exactly the number. You get the point. So the people you spend around like time with are the people who are going to shape your thinking, your mood, your habits, your discipline, etc. And so again, coming to a call like this is a moment in your week where you are thinking in a different way. And then you leave this call and then you look at things differently. You maybe take action differently versus, I mean, I don't know what sort of home situations are like, but I remember I was on a call with a client earlier this week, and she was super excited, kind of apprehensive about starting her fitness journey. And I was saying, I mean, some of you may relate. I was sort of saying, that's great, your husband, your kids, it's worth, speaking to them and trying to get them to support you in some kind of way. And, if you and your husband have a habit each evening of just choosing something on Hunger Station, can't you opt for something a little bit better or maybe cook together or whatever? And she literally said, I've already tried. My husband said no. So for you to be in a situation like that, for example, is tough, right? You're going to need more support around you because it's going to be really difficult for you to maintain that level of discipline when everything around you is fighting for that. Marvin, I'm going to pass over to you here because I just need to grab my laptop charger.
Yes. So the next question that ties into this is who inspires you? What is it about this person that inspires you? And what lessons can you take from them? This could be, again, people within your environment, immediate environment, whether it's family, friends, colleagues. Perhaps the people on social media, is there someone that inspires you and you would like to model after, some of the things that they do and you want to incorporate in your life as well? For me, a person that comes to mind, and I'm not just saying this because she probably won't even watch this anyway, is my wife.
I thought you were going to say
Just
me,
the fact
Marvin. That's awkward.
that definitely not. Yeah, just the fact that it's health and fitness is not something that comes natural to her, right? I've been in fitness, I've been playing sport all my life, whereas she kind of just played at school and then went straight into the corporate world for her, like went the traditional route, uni, lawyer, law degree, corporate world, whatever. And so starting to have this like, I'm not feeding her this fitness stuff, but trying to lead by example and so on and so forth. But then her um, way of just adapting all this stuff in her life is just so incredible, and seeing how that discipline that she had in her corporate world and her corporate career transition over into being a wife, being a mother, and now as well with her fitness. Honestly, I could definitely draw some lessons from her. She's just so dialed in. Pete, who inspires you?
Well, I think everyone's going to get angry with me if I don't say my mum. Obviously, I sort of put her on social media, and she's, 69, deadlifting 100 kilos, repping 10 push, what was it actually? Six pull-ups she got. I got the rest of them for her. The four extras, she relied on me. But yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you this story just quickly. Like, I remember, or she remembers, she keeps reminding me, when she was still working, I think she was 58 or 59, we were sat in a sort of pizza restaurant, and she had been saying for a while, I want to get to the gym, I want to do this, and I want to, like, I think I should. And she reminds me, she's like, Pete, you said to me, if you really wanted to, you would find the time. And that is something that really stuck with her. And then fast forward, I don't know, 2 years, she eventually got into the gym and started training. Just one session a week is what she did. And she did that with my younger brother. And she then, fast forward 3 years later, she's winning the sort of International Powerlifting Federation Masters for her age and her weight category. She's getting the gold medals. She's she's doing this kind of stuff. And so she now says after that, you were absolutely right. And she was working out at 6 a.m. before she went to teach ballet at school. She would work out afterwards. She then got a sort of equipment at home and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of the time it's just simply what we say we want isn't a priority. We say we want it, but we don't want to do the work that takes to get that thing. And as soon as we're honest and sort of realistic with ourselves, the fact that, life can be so much easier if we pretend to stop wanting the thing that we don't want to do the work for. So it's just, I think, an interesting take on it there. And in relation to this question, who inspires you? Like, look at them. What are they doing? What are their habits? How do they behave? Who are they? Are they the type of person who skips? Are they the type of person who orders hunger station at every point in the day? Are they the type of person who does this? And that can be in anything. That can be a mother, that can be a friend, that can be your boss. Inspiration comes from many, many different places and it applies to many, many different things. So definitely worth delving into this question a little bit more.
And
And on the
while we're
flip
being
side,
honest as well, Pete,
love a
this
bit of
was
honesty.
this is a really good one, right? Speaking of honesty, who or what do you need to distance yourself from immediately? Not tomorrow, not next year. Start now, immediately. Think of people, habits, conversations, influences. Um, and I can imagine just, for most people here, probably in the corporate world, right, where you are probably around colleagues, there's probably a lot of complaining, there's probably a lot of negativity. I don't know this, I've never been in the corporate world, but this is the sense that I get from, coaching clients, having friends in the corporate world. There seems to always just be this constant negativity, whether it's the bosses or the work that has to be done or whatever change is coming in. So are you able to kind of pull yourself out of those conversations?
And I think same thing as on that, like same thing with friends, right? I realized this, I think, way too late in life, where the people you spend time with, they can dictate and change your whole mood. Just not even necessarily in the day, but over the long term. And you realize that, okay, if I spend time with this person, all we do is gossip and bitch and moan. And so what are you going to feel like after that? Obviously you're going to be negative. You're going to be looking at things in a different way, negative, and it's a drain. I'm sure you have all of those people in your life who build you up, who give you energy. You leave them with a spring in your step. And so it's really important to understand, okay, who builds me up, who radiates energy for me, and hopefully you do the same, and who drains that energy for me. Because, this is easier said than done for sure. If you've got a sister who is a certain way, or your father or your partner even, it's difficult to do, but it's worth being aware of that this person potentially drains you. Therefore, what can you do in those interactions to then change that, right? For example, I have a friend here in Jeddah, and he is struggling at the moment. He is not having a great time, and every interaction we have, like I met up with him for today for a couple of hours, everything is a negative, 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 negative. And you bring psycho people, yes, Monera. If you bring this to their attention, because a lot of the time they don't necessarily know that they're doing it. So you can be the good friend or the good partner or whatever it is and get them to see what they are doing. Because I'm sure they don't want to be miserable. They don't want to be unhappy. They would much rather be in a better place. And so you can, if you know there are these people who drain you, how can you actually positively influence them? Now, we speak about this a lot. In order to step into your new identity, the old version of you needs to die. So you cannot bring in, or you cannot bring old habits into this new identity. So it's again thinking about, are you someone who lets their feelings dictate their actions? You're not feeling great, you had a bit of a shit day at work, so you're not going to go to the gym. You need to again step into that new identity and leave some of the baggage behind. This is an interesting one. Is there anyone you want to prove wrong and show them that you can thrive?
Yeah,
Brutal
I'll go
honesty,
first.
no judgment.
Myself. Myself. Yeah, I mean, to kind of come back to what I said earlier about standards and how my own standards have dropped, I think it's very easy because when you change your standards, the person you become or the things that you're willing to accept are very different from what you used to do, right? And so what is now the norm for me is, the easy way out or the easy route, right? And so I really want to prove to myself that, I'm wrong in thinking that this is the way to go. Going to show myself that I can thrive because I know I've done it before. I know I've been disciplined before. I know I've been able to achieve these things. I've been the type of person who does X. I've been the type of person that wakes up early in the morning, that gets things done. And yeah, I know it sounds like a cop out, but this is brutal honesty.
For sure,
And
I'll
when
tell you brutal honesty. When I moved to Saudi Arabia and I worked in a gym called Core, we had a boss. He was called Adam, and he
name dropping, Pete.
was an absolute arse. Uh, we we had a team meeting, and I shouldn't say this, but I will because it's funny. Um, in his notepad after the meeting, it was left on the table, and there was a really good friend called Jeremiah as well, Jerry. And in this notebook, it had Jerry's name and it had my name, and this was just like a team catch-up sort of thing, right? Under Jerry's name, it was like delusional, this kind of shit, overconfident, thinks he knows more than he does. And it was like personal attacks, right? And then on my name, it was thinks he's bigger than the team. Does he want to be here? Question mark. What else were the other ones? I still got the picture actually because I took a picture of it. Um, yeah, not a team player, doesn't want to be here. Serious, like fake as well was a word as well. So for me, after I saw that, it was a case of, all right, like, fuck you, Adam. Like, I'm gonna show you and show you actually what I can do. And what I was doing anyway. But anyway, I think he just had small man syndrome. But so from Sarah, not anymore. Growth became a lot easier when I stopped needing external validation. Absolutely. That is a really good point. I think the point sort of here is like there's different types of fuel, right? And so you can have like anger is a really powerful fuel because anger leads people to action. It gets them to do shit. So it's important to then know what is the kind of fuel that you are running on. Is it, optimism, wanting to be the best version of yourself, all of this kind of stuff. As we said at the beginning, like pain, and discomfort is a really powerful driver. The flip side, moving towards pleasure and aspiration, may not necessarily be as strong, but it's going to keep you doing stuff for the long term, right? It's a very positive fuel. Rather, if you're killing yourself, driving yourself into the ground to prove something or someone wrong, obviously that can be quite long-term damaging, right? So I think it's really interesting to sort of think about that. And also, just, I mean, Sarah, it sounds like you need to be taking this lesson more than us, but whose opinion do you worry about the most? Like, where does this present in your life? And what I would say, going like just a personal story, social media for me, like when I was a coach and sorry, I am a coach, but when I was posting more coaching specific content, I was worried about what people back home, coaches I knew back home, what they would say or what they would think. And I wasn't necessarily steering it towards the audience, the target audience. And so you would overcomplicate things to show these people over here that you knew what you were talking about. But it would be irrelevant to the people who you're actually trying to reach. So this was a sort of illuminating thing for me. And I look back at that time and it's like, damn, like I was wasting so much time worrying about what these people would think who have absolutely no bearing on me. And that comes from I guess, a needing external validation, wanting to be liked, and so on. So how about you, Marvin?
Yeah, I think it's human nature, right? Where we always kind of want to see, we seek validation, approval from other people, and I think this is very relevant here. Just from being here long enough and understanding some of the cultural elements of being in Saudi, I would imagine quite a lot of people will probably pipe up and mention parents, family, siblings, that type of thing. But for me personally, my parents, I still find myself wanting approval from them
Mm,
because I didn't go the traditional route, career-wise, and yet I've made a, great life for myself. I'm able to be present for my family, which is, what I truly prize the most in this life. And so I still kind of find myself wanting a little bit of approval from dad, him saying, "Oh, son, you did well. Oh, son, this, that, and the other," which I probably won't get because he doesn't understand what I do to this day.
mm.
Pete, you can relate to that.
Yeah, we spoke about this the other day, or what was it, yesterday? And yeah, like with my dad, when I was growing up, it was always about, okay, how much money is your salary? Oh, well,
Yeah.
we pay our graduates this much. And he was an engineer and I was in marketing. Oh, you got a promotion? How much are you on now? We pay this much for that. So it was always not enough.
Yeah.
And funnily, like obviously moving to Saudi, the income's better, there's no income tax, all of that kind of stuff. And so it's funny. I told him sort of at one point what I was earning. And I was expecting big celebration, big, like, oh my God, Pete, you're amazing.
Nothing.
What I'd wanted for like 20 decades of my life, right? And nothing. It was like, so this has been the fuel that I've been using for this time. And the climax is such an anticlimax.
But thank you
So,
for the fuel.
yeah, for sure. So, anywho, anywho, let's not turn this into a Pete and Marvin therapy session. Okay, so we're coming towards the end now. What advice would you give to your younger self who never thought you'd be where you are now? What is that younger person of you feeling? What is their state of mind? Because for me, going back to this, what we just kind of said is knowing what is the true reason for the behavior that you're doing. Is it for external validation? Is it for approval? How can you work on yourself? How can you overcome that? And so for me, there's two things here which come here. It's ask for help, ask people who are in the know, who have done the thing that you want to do, because that will obviously propel you forward rather than just make the mistakes yourself. And so this is why, again, all of you here, you're working with people who are experts, who've done this before, who know what's going on and how to manage that for yourselves. So you've already jumped ahead. Maybe it wasn't quite as early as you wanted to. Maybe you wanted to do it a couple of years ago. But the fact is, now you are here. And I think the other thing would just be like stop procrastinating and just like do the thing that you say you're going to do. That's another big one for me. How about you, Marvin?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take some time thinking about that one. Yeah, probably something less advice and more so reminder that, the discipline and the hard work that you put in the early years really does work. I know we spoke about compounding habits and skills and things compounding earlier on, similar to compound interest, right? All the, 5 a.m. wake ups in the gym do eventually actually pay off. And so, keep the fire burning, if you will.
Yeah, Rasha, sort of moving away from external validation towards inspiring yourself can be useful, for sure. And I think it all starts with having a greater degree of self-awareness and knowing potentially what your life traps are, where you struggle, where your blind spots are, and then, turning those weaknesses, as cheesy as it sounds, into things that are strengths or things that you can, they're not hamstringing you for the future. So, your 2026 non-negotiable, we are coming to the end. Your 2026 non-negotiable, choose one behavior, not a goal, not a feeling, a behavior you can execute on bad days.
Janine comes in here with a very interesting one. Says, believe it or not, but my younger self told me that my elder self will be in a very good place, and she was right. I'm with you on that one, Janine. I wonder what you were thinking at the time, right? It's almost like you were forecasting what was going to happen, right? So yeah, you're right. I feel exactly the same way.
Oh, I love
Uh,
that.
yeah.
So, non-negotiable, one behavior. I would say now, I would say like being appreciative or appreciation or appreciate sort of appreciate, because I think a lot of the 20s for sure have been like hammering. Same thing in the 30s, and I think I'm coming personally to that stage in life where things are kind of paying off, if that makes sense, and you don't necessarily need to push so hard to sort of achieve the same thing as before. Maybe you need to work smarter. Maybe you need to actually take your foot off the gas a little bit and just really, focus on experiences, appreciation of moments and relationships and that side of things. So that's my non-negotiable. And I've already actually started that in relation to the journal questions that I've been doing. The gratitude, the appreciation questions I have in there are really powerful for me before I sleep, just to start wiring my brain differently rather than just running on stress and what's next, to-do list, tick, 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 tick. Marvin?
Yeah, I would say I heard this once and I was like, oh man, this is just nonsense. Like it sounds so cheesy. And then I actually did it a couple times and I was like, oh, okay, that works. And it was, I don't remember who it was, but he was basically talking about how, when you come home from work or wherever you're coming from and, you're coming home into your family and you haven't seen them for majority of the day, rather than just walking into the house and just, bringing whatever, thoughts and whatever's happened in the day before with you, you're going to respond to whatever's happening based on what you had experienced previously in the day. And it was almost like just kind of take a moment, like even if it takes you 5 to 10 minutes in the car where you just kind of breathe, relax, think about the area that you're going into, think about your family, think about how you want them to view you and see you and being happy and things like that. And I actually started to do that. And this is definitely something I want to stick to because I've done it on and off. And so I find that it really is helpful when I do that. Um, you know, yeah, because it's so important for your family to or for you to come home and yeah, be nice and jovial with your family. You can't come in screaming and shouting and you
Is this
know.
where the Reddit scrolling comes into place in the car outside?
Unfortunately, not. The Reddit scrolling is at a little bit later on.
I see, I see. Love what you're
Um,
saying, Janine. Set your goal and pursue it, no matter how difficult the path is. And I think you're testament to that in terms of what you have been achieving with us over these last couple of years. And I guess the final reminder, right? And this is goes for anything and everything. 2026 will not reward intention. It will not reward, oh, I'm hoping for, I'm trying to do this. It will reward action and it will reward behavior. Those are the things that is going to sort of drive you forward and propel you forward into whatever it is you want to sort of work towards. And again, when you are looking at these questions, think about not necessarily doing everything at once, but what are the biggest movers for you, even if it's just one thing that you can focus on initially. Set the foundations, get things in place, overcome, one of the big habits. So I'm sure for Marvin, if he starts waking up at, kid permitting, 5:30 in the morning, whatever it is, he then has extra time to focus on other things. But that is the habit which underpins everything else. So, think of your year as the phases that you're going to go through. And obviously, myself and Marvin will work with you all on these different aspects, right? What comes in and when you have made those mindset shifts and everything. So, Marvin, final thoughts from anyone?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. Just the way that we've set this up in a way where it's not like, sit down, write your goals for 2026. There's a lot more intention behind all of this. And I think if you follow the advice, if you actually spend the time, you are the people that have come into this call, and of course the others that are going to watch this. You have taken the time to do this, right? Taken the 30 odd, well, an hour that you've taken
30
to
minutes.
actually to go through this, right? You might as well carry on. You might as well continue. So don't leave it here, as we said in the beginning. Make sure you definitely spend some time with those worksheets. Probably will only take you another 15 or so minutes, but it'll be worth it. And you'll be able to look back on this at the end of 2026 and kind of, work your way backwards, appreciating all the efforts that you've put in. And yeah, it'll be a nice way to review.
Yeah, and I think these sorts of things, it's always great to, take some time out somewhere. So go to a different cafe, go to, maybe a different room in your house that you don't usually go to. Go somewhere so you are out of the everyday environment. You're out of those kind of cues, that thinking, those associations. Whether it's just go sit on the Corniche if you're in Jeddah and just enjoy a sunset when you're looking at these sorts of things. That taking yourself into a different context gets you to think more freely, more creatively, and hopefully come up with some interesting insights. So, any questions, anyone? As always, we really appreciate you taking the time to join these sessions.